Let's see how this is going now. Let's press play.
Definition of diversity, equity, and inclusion, Pete Hegseth is a DEI hire. Pete Hegseth is not qualified for that position, and he shouldn't be in that position. So therefore, it's very tough for me and many people in America to take him seriously about anything.
It was hard to
Don
watch.
Lemon is a
gem.
useless person.
It was.
No one cares about at all.
Well, he's doing pretty good. He's up 900,000 subscribers now on his personal YouTube. He's in D.C. asking the tough questions back to his journalism roots. And he's having a good time doing it and growing his own media company. But irrelevant or not, 900,000 people agree that he's not. Separate from that, I think that this speech from Hegseth and Trump was incoherent, rambling, and just downright confusing. I think that the way that they attacked the military, it seemed more like a campaign rally and kind of
attack the military.
Yeah, get rid of your beards if you have hair. Like some people grow their hair because it's a family thing. Some people like attacking the way you look, attacking women in that, saying, "Oh, get out of these roles. If you want to serve our country, you don't belong there. You're not fit enough."
Saying
it
they
just
have
very
to meet
much was a condescending.
Standards
it was just a very much a condescending thing, especially attacking our country. President Trump called it a war from within, and so the fact that you're talking about Chicago and using it as a training ground to I ought to hit them, like this is very childish, and asking generals and people who actually lead major wars or in position to be able to do that, to go have war within our country and within our major cities is kind of absurd. I think should be to any American to have our president standing up there and saying, yeah, practice here for what we do internationally. And then the whole joke about it with Hegseth saying mess around and find out. You guys know the analogy. I'm not going to say on air, but like making jokes at the time about how much we're going to be hard on people and be fighting. Like after we just changed this thing to the War Department, it just seems very much anti everything that America stands for, from fighting internally and also trying to be more war prone outside of the U.S. when most people in the country want to be less involved in international conflicts.
So there are things he said and things Trump said, excuse me, that I agree with and things I don't agree with. In terms of women in combat roles or trimming your beards, being in better shape, I support all of that. We should have the most effective fighting force that there is. The standards should be objective, exactly like Pete Hegseth said. If you can,
are you ineffective with a higher hair? Are you ineffective with a beard?
They shave your head in the military. It's part of the ethos of it is you're not an individual. You're part of an elite fighting force, and so they discourage superficial individual expressions. You want to express yourself as an individual, the military might not be the right place.
So okay, here we go. He's in D.C. asking the tough questions back to his journalism roots, and he's having a good time doing it and growing his own.
Okay, so all right, okay.
Sorry, Pete Hegseth is not qualified for that position, and he shouldn't be in that position. So therefore, it's very tough for me and many people in America to take him seriously about anything.
It was hard to watch.
Don Lemon is a
gem.
Useless person.
It was.
No one cares about at all.
Well, he's doing pretty good. He's up 900,000 subscribers now on his personal YouTube. He's in D.C. asking the tough questions back to his journalism roots. And he's having a good time doing it and growing his own media company. But irrelevant or not, 900,000 people agree that he's not. Separate from that, I think that this speech from Hegseth and Trump was incoherent, rambling, and just downright confusing. I think that the way that they attacked the military, it seemed more like a campaign rally.
I like Lindsay because she is always happy and she always smiles. But at the same time, Lindsay, I don't think Lindsay, I don't know much about her life, but she comes across as if she's probably never had much experience in life outside of America in really bad situations. The military is not a place it's not a daycare. It's not a college. It's not a university. It's not some frat, house. Okay. This is not it's not a daycare. It's not a mental facility. It's not a therapy session. It's none of that. It is not supposed to be nice. It is not supposed to produce nice people. It is supposed to fine tune individuals to be killing machines for a country. I mean, we're even trained. I was talking about this to my boyfriend, but we were trained even when we shoot. Like our things are they're not even chest. Like they're not even here up. They're like here up. Okay. So like when we join the military and we go to the shooting range, we're not shooting to try to we don't shoot people in the legs. We shoot people center mass. It's one shot, one kill. Okay. That type of indoctrination does not come across as a nice person. When you say one shot, one kill, yeah, that's not an organization meant for nice people. Um, I instead I went to vote with my 19-year-old daughter in November. We voted for the candidate who is out on bail, 200K foster bail bond, Georgia, was found guilty of felonies and was found liable for sex. And I did too. I voted for Trump, and it wasn't because it's like I voted for Trump in the same way I support Pete Hegseth. Um, Sometimes, and then on top of that too, but sometimes God takes the most imperfect people, at least it's shown in the Bible, the most imperfect people, and has had plans for them, to try to help people, um, in a way. And when I think about our nation, I want a strong military. And everything that Pete Hegseth has said, and what his vision is for what he wants out of our military personnel is something I can mess with. That's something I want to defend my nation. Um, so, as pleasant as Lindsay is, I'm pretty sure she would want someone who's fearless to defend her, who is stoic, and unafraid, not someone who is constantly complaining, who needs a emotional support card because they can't handle being yelled at or being cussed at. And yes, back in the day when I was in, and it wasn't that long ago, yes, they could curse at you, they could yell at you, um, but when you're going into that mind frame, you already know it's not because they're yelling at you because they want you to be mean. No, they want you to survive. They want you to come back home. There's no room for pleasantries or niceties when you're in the military. So it's a mentality thing, and I she will never understand that, and I hope she never does. Based off of how she looks, I don't think she would be the type of type of female who will want that lifestyle and what comes with it. By my father who observed me. Oh wait, I was taught don't shoot anything you don't want to. Yes, exactly. And uh, I cannot, like they even drill that when you're down when you're in the military too. Like even when it comes to our guns and we're going down the range, like they like you don't point your gun unless you want to shoot something. Like you because you could flag someone, you can get a friendly fire that way. So yeah, you know um, military is they're training soldiers, they're training killers, they're not training polite peacekeepers. You know what I'm saying? But okay, going back.
and kind of
Attack the
yeah,
military.
get rid of your beards if you have hair. Like some people grow their hair because it's a family thing. Some people like attacking the way you look, attacking women in that, saying, "Oh, get out of these roles. If you want to serve our country, you don't belong there. You're not
Not
fit enough."
attacking, saying
It
they
just
have to
very
meet
much was a
objective
condescending.
standards
It
and
was it
criteria.
was just a very much a condescending thing, especially attacking our country. President Trump called it a war from within, and so the fact that you're talking about Chicago and using it as a training ground to I ought to hit them, like this is very childish, and asking generals and people who actually lead major wars or in position to be able to do that to go have war within our country and within our major cities is kind of absurd. I think should be to any American to have our president standing up there and saying, yeah, practice here for what we do internationally. And then the whole joke about it with Hegseth saying mess around and find out. You guys know the analogy. I'm not going to say on air, but like making jokes at the time about how much we're going to be hard on people and be fighting. Like after we just changed this thing to the War Department, it just seems very much anti everything that America.
Well, the department, it should be named Department of War because our military, if you if you are really concerned about our military and not wanting them to be used on American citizens, I think Department of War is a way better name for that. War would imply, would hopefully we would imply that it would only be done internationally and not locally. But if I had to give a more like a stronger name, I would definitely change it to Department of War, um, and make the standards go back to back. I would roll back the standards to have a more disciplined. There you go. That's the right word. More disciplined unit than what we have today, just from what I've been seeing. And that, yeah, that was just from what I was seeing. He said, "Holy fuck, you're right. I'm embarrassed. The lesson wasn't done. Point your gun at anything unless you plan to kill it. The other stuff, but the other stuff too. But that was an important part of the lesson." Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. No, that is no. Don't say that. You're embarrassed with that. No, you don't want to point your gun at anything unless you plan to kill it. I think that's a very wise. I think that's a very wise like I think that's a very wise thing to have, to teach, especially children. Father yelled at me the first time when he showed me how to handle a gun in that home when I was about 7. Yes, um, yes. So like, oh yeah, no, no. When you're a child, I think that is an appropriate way to say it. So that a child can understand how dangerous it is to not point something or else, But you definitely got it right. And then you started young. I wish I could shoot a gun when I was 7. I'd probably be terrified of the thing, but waiting until I was an adult to handle a gun, yeah, that was fun. And I own guns now. Oh, I own two.
America it stands for from fighting internally and also trying to be more war prone outside of the U.S. when most people in the country want to be less involved in international conflicts.
So there are things he said and things Trump said, excuse me, that I agree with and things I don't agree with. Uh, in terms of women in combat roles or trimming your beards, being in better shape, I support all of that. We should have the most effective fighting force that there is. The standards should be objective, exactly like Pete Hegseth said. If you can,
Are you ineffective with a higher hair? Are you ineffective with a
they
beard?
shave your head in the military. It's part of the ethos of it is you're not an individual. You're part of an elite fighting
Yes.
force, and so they discourage superficial individual expressions. You want to express yourself as an individual, the military might not be the right.
I agree, and there's a reason for this. I mean, we already have rules in the military where people, by human nature, um, they have favorites, so favoritism, right? And when you are given multiple groups, you're fracturing the military when you're allowing multiple groups to have a lot of how have their own culture, as it were, to be able to allow them to do anything and everything. And I'm like, believe it or not, I also like I know I'm going to get a lot of shit for this, but I also believe the same with religion in the military. Yes, you can have all your different, religions that you want in there, but when it even comes to your appearance, if you want to be a practicing Muslim and you want to wear a practicing, no, if you want to be a practice, we're the ones who wear the sheiks. Yeah, well, I don't know what religion it is who are the sheiks. Oh crap, I feel really embarrassed now with that. I don't know if that's Hindu or whatever Hinduism or I don't know, but it's one of those religions where they can wear their head wraps, and honestly, if we like, if they just wanted to wear it when they weren't in the uniform, I would have no problem with that. The same thing with the Jewish person wearing a yarmulke. I'm sorry, I know Jesus was a of Jewish culture, is from the Jewish culture and all that other stuff. I totally understand that, but when you join the military, it's different. Like I do not think there needs to be different cultures within military because they can splinter. I do not think there needs to be all these different identities in the military other than your identity as US military. That means looking the same, being the same, and with that you do lessen favoritism. You do treat everyone equal. That is the point. You need to treat everyone equal in the military, period. Stop, point blank. If you want that freedom of expression, get the hell out. If you can't do your freedom of expression without it tainting the uniform or making it look like you're out of regulation, then you shouldn't be. You should probably not choose that as your career. I was into like a whole bunch of tattoos and piercings. And if I wanted to get a piercing, I had to put a band-aid over it because I like you cannot wear that while you're in uniform or you had to put it in a spacer. You know, what would it look like if we now allow, those who are self-expression and be like, I identify as a push pin, and I want my face just filled with all different types of piercings because I'm a push pin. That would not be allowed to happen. I mean, by what they're doing right now, what would be the reason as to why you shouldn't allow me to have piercings if you're willing to let people be so relaxed in the regulation? There's obviously a line here you don't want to cross. And I have a feeling it's because you want the appearance of your soldiers to look like they are combat ready, look like they are fighting mean lean machines, fighting mean lean machines. So having someone with a freaking piercings all over their faces is probably not going to strike the fear in hi guys, what are you talking about? I'm just now getting on here. Oh, this one here is I'm just going over Pete Hegseth's opinion and his speech and the opinion of troops being used in America in some of these cities, and just addressing Pete Hegseth's remarks around the standards of the military, because I was in the military and I do think they need to go back. So that's didn't mean to. Oh, that's fine. But that's just my opinion. It's a fine that you interrupt me in that sense. Okay, but that's what I was talking about. And I only say that because I was prior military. But anyways, now I'm going back.
Place for you. That's what he's saying. That's in keeping with military teaching and training. That's fine. I don't object to any of that. I think that's great. I think the emphasis on physical fitness is great. The holding generals to the same standard, great. All that good. What I like less is some of the rhetoric from Hegseth is a little bit of this kind of tough guy, I can do more push-ups than you sort of thing that I just find
And I like to see him go through the
obnoxious.
training.
Oh my God, that is the culture of military, dude. Like I said, it's hard to explain to people who've never been in the military these things being in military. Physical fitness is something that, it's like you want the best of the best. You want, and then on top of that, those who do, I don't know if any of you guys have ever been in the military either, but like the one thing I remember being in the military, I wanted to be the fastest person. I wanted to see if I could do the push-ups. I wanted to see if I can be the one who get the expert marksmanship. Like we strive to want to be better. So when we see someone that there who can push out push-ups more than we do, we're like, no, that person is my competition. I want to beat them. It's part of the culture, the best of the best. Like I can't really explain it to them. Oh crap. Oh, come on. Focus. Oh, damn it. I think it's a shadow. Yeah. Oh yeah, sorry. Oh, there you go. Yeah. Now I'm pulled back. So. Okay, there we go. Okay, so yeah, when you're in the military, you want to strive to be the best. Because you get these coins, you get privileges. Sometimes you even get like tickets. So one time I got a ticket to go to a football game simply because I got like the highest score. So there's reasons for all of this stuff. A lot of it has to do with incentive. Sometimes even just be like, oh, I want to be squad leader this week, or I want to lead the PT this week. There's reasons why we have this type of competitiveness in the military because we want to strive to be the best soldier, and it's fun. It's nothing done out of crassness. Like, I can do that. No, it's fun. It makes it fun. I can't really explain it unless you've been in that culture. I've never met a single person from the military who didn't like the camaraderie. Like that's the one thing that we remember from our time in the service. It's the camaraderie and the competitiveness and how we made friends and stuff like that. And it's fun if you're a very athletic individual and you like the outdoors, at least the army for me. That's what I joined. So they just don't understand the culture of the military, and they want to change it in order to fit their nice, you need to be more nice. You don't know the culture, so please stay out of it, but out of it. Yes, yes, standardization will decrease enrollment, but why would it decrease enrollment? I think a lot of times, like the only time, okay, if you're very patriotic in our country, if we teach patriotism in our country and people to not hate our country and to see that we have done a lot in the world to actually help, um, instead of just always trying to bash our country and to have the younger youth hate it. That's the reason why our enrollments are decreasing. Why? Like, think about it. If you have if you have a young generation growing up in America and you want them, and you want America's military to, I don't know, decrease in size, wouldn't you want to start bashing the country? And when you do, wouldn't the outcome be a decrease in enrollment? And basically, since Trump has been in office, we have had a decrease in enrollment since 2016, if I'm not mistaken. But it definitely went down the hill once Biden was in office. They were missing their enrollments by a lot, unless those numbers we were getting from all the different military source branches were lies. They weren't making their cuts. The only one that was making their cuts, if I believe their numbers, if I believe, was the Marines. And that's because if you looked at the Marines, commercial, like it was highly patriotic. It had to do more with serving your country and selflessness. It wasn't all about war, 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 war. It was more about honoring your country and serving your country and giving it and giving them like part of your like fulfilling part of your duty to a country if you want to, if you love your country so much, right? So it that commercial, it targeted those who were very patriotic of their country, and when they saw other branches commercials that didn't seem like they were concerned about protecting the country and were more concerned about social experiments in the military, it made sense why they decided not to go with those branches and to go to the Marines. And it makes sense why only the Marines were able to keep up their numbers. So I don't think it really depends on who the president is that comes into office. I think I think it has more to do with how the country, how we teach the younger generations about the country that they're in and to love it. We don't have to go around being like, we need to be more imperialistic and go around the world. No, 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 we don't have to teach that, but we can teach people about the country of America and the things that we have done good. Also, we can teach them about the things that have done that were bad, some of our mistakes like Vietnam, and so we can to learn from that, but um it doesn't really seem like it doesn't seem like that's what they were trying to, that doesn't seem like what they were trying to do when I look at the other branches. um I don't think we should teach patriotism, but I do think we should teach the good and the bad of our history. I think the US is a good country in history, but turning away from bad portions is a terrible wait but turning away from the bad portions. Wait, I'll let you clarify on that because I can't really understand the last part. You said I think the U.S. history is the greatest country in the history, but turning away from the bad portions is a terrible direction to go in. I don't know what you mean by that. What would be um like teaching patriotism doesn't necessarily mean like if we look at the word patriotism, what does, like, I don't understand why people think, well, actually, I do. I think when people see patriotism, they automatically think of Nazism and nationalism, but in the form of the extremes. But patriotism is not an extreme word. Um, it's vigorous support of one's country. I'm always going to be in support of the country I live in. Um, how, of patriotism. It says, I hate when they use patriotic. So we'll just look at patriotic. Having an expression or devotion to and rigorous support of one's country. This here does not mean that by me being patriotic, I must invade another country. I don't know where we have gone to say that because I love my country and I'm patriotic, that means I want to invade another country. That makes absolutely no sense to me. I would expect anyone, no matter what country they're from, to love the country that they're in. It would be moronic to request that they don't. So I do think as far as the it getting out of control, where it leads to you killing a group of people in your own borders because they aren't as patriotic, that right there is something that patriotism or real patriots would never do, because in essence you're killing your own countrymen, and how that is not patriotic. That is as far away from patriotic as I can possibly imagine. um I think overly focusing on the good history of America is a bad focusing. No. That's what I said. When it comes to the war, when we think of war, when I mean in this context with history, when it comes to the military, I'm not talking about just the good wars and the ones that we made great. When you look at our strategy with accomplishing that war, like the two fronts um, um, with our greatest enemy now being Russia was our ally, we would have never defeated Germany. But looking at how the reason why did we go into Vietnam? Who was it for? Why did we do this? Why did we lose? I think all of that is bad history. Not bad history. That is good history, but it's the bad parts of our history when it comes to military history and why that would be wrong. Also, when you think about like military history in other countries, um, uh, like you want to, I think when it comes to just anything in the military, uh, at least with our country, if you want people, the youth, to enroll in it, you have to be patriotic. And you also have to talk about the bad things of our country and the good things of our country. And you need to tell them, if we wanted to go about history, you need to tell them that no one, not one country, no matter how righteous they may seem, no matter how righteous they may seem because they are poor now, every country in the world has had a bad and a good history. And if anyone were to tell you otherwise, they are not patriotic. They want you to hate your country. And I would say the same thing to anybody in another country. If someone tries to teach you that your country is bad because of X, Y, and Z, because of what you did, without also telling you how other countries have done the same thing and did bad and good things, they want you to hate your country. So, like, I will stand firmly by that. I will always, like, when I have my own kids, I will instill in them to be patriotic, but that does not mean invading other countries. That does not mean um, doing the crazy stuff that we have been doing. And it does not mean taking money from tax dollars in the form of foreign aid to spread your imperialistic, dogma and ideologies around that we have been doing for the past, God knows, I don't know how many years, and in turn changing those countries in order to, follow our ways, even though the stuff that we want would go against their own values. Like, I'm not for that. I'm not in any way, shape, or form for that. Using our tax dollars to fucking do this. It's one thing that if we want to use our tax dollars to help them, with them possibly being an ally of ours and us negotiating a treaty, that's one thing. But I would hope it would be in partnership and not because we want to um, like influence them in a way to like change their culture and only adopt our ways. And if I were really want to elaborate into that, it's like, there's countries out there who would love to, partnership with America, but they want to still preserve their own country. Like they believe in like the basics, freedom of speech, all that other stuff, right? But at the same time, I guess you can call it reforming themselves. But at the same time, they might not agree with everything we have going on in this country, like let's say with the LGBTQ stuff. Maybe they don't want that, but they still want to help. They still want to be able to be friends with you. But I don't think it's okay for us. I don't think it would be okay for us to be patriotic and say, we will help you, but in exchange with giving you this money, you must implement this type of ideology within your society. No, I think that if they want to be friends with us and they are true, and the only way you can really guarantee that is if we have something to trade. So if it's a country that doesn't want to trade with us and have something that we need in a way, I don't even think we should really be fucking with them. I'm sorry. I don't really think we should really be. I don't think we should really be dealing with that, to be honest. Not to mention our own founding fathers just told us, warned us about meddling in other countries, and like and they were still patriotic. They were very patriotic. So you could be patriotic and not get involved with other countries. And if we were to adhere to our founding fathers, they would literally tell us this. No. When I look at the views of being too negative, like I'm like, what do you mean by being too negative, Mr. Trump? Because you like for me, you have to include all the history, good and the bad. Um, you know, one side, if it's like trying to purify and sanitize our history, so that it makes America always look good, then I will be against that. However, if it's also the other way where you want to sanitize all the good out of America's history and only leave the bad, I'm going to be against that too. Unfortunately, we're so polarized. That's exactly what our parties are doing. Maybe not Trump so much. Maybe we might have some people in the Trump administration willing to fight back and say, no, we should keep this. And not to mention, I think there are people on our side who are willing to stand up and admit the truth and say that you should bring certain things back. If this is happening, or if this information has been taken down, like anything related to like the struggles of blacks or any of that, and you're taking it down so you can erase racism, erase our racist history or whatever, then I don't think that's right. But however, if you have these racist, you have the things that are like about our bad history, like when it comes to blacks. But if you frame it in a way that we all know is incorrect, like saying stuff like America, like for instance, America didn't bring slaves over here. America brought no slaves over here. All slaves were already here to begin with in the first place. America inherited this from Britain. But when you have people in the Smithsonian trying to rewrite history or make revisionist history to try to pretend that as if our sin was slavery, as if we brought all these slaves over, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to say you're wrong. And unfortunately, on the other side, they do this. So it's not so much that I can't disagree. It's not so much that I won't disagree with Trump. And it's not so much that anything that is too negative, I don't think should just be shouldn't be reviewed. But I do think they should be reviewed to be accurate. And that right there, if you even want to make it bipartisan, okay, you have fact checkers, historians from both sides of the aisle who can agree to something. You come to it and come together with an agreement with all the different historians, not just one trying to, or one side trying to push a narrative. Have them both, study. I'm pretty sure they'll be very well credentialed. Have them, compare history, talk to each other, and then come to a consensus on what happened, and then display that. But if it's partisan, I don't want it. Um, I don't want it. So that's just how I feel about that topic. And the only reason why okay, if you disagree with that, then it sounds like we must agree on this topic. Yeah. And the only reason why I say I'm like the only reason, because I see it happening the other way. Like, I don't like it. I don't like, I don't like racism, period. Okay. Especially when it goes the other way. I will never stand by and say nothing. I just won't. And if we are to try to change history, try to make the other side look bad and try to like emphasize as if it was the whole of America involved in this, I'm gonna have to push back on it. But also too, they have moved the goalposts. We all know, they know too. They know for a fact that it was only a few, but then they moved the goalposts to that. Oh well, all of these people benefited from that. How did they all benefit from that? Oh, that's they'll say, oh, it's because the system, our politician put in things. So that the politician put in places programs that they could qualify for, and they applied, and therefore you're gonna chastise them for things that should they have not participated in any of the programs? Should like that makes no sense to me. Should they all have said, I'm struggling, but since Black people aren't getting it, I'm not going to apply for it? It's ridiculous. And I'm like, if it happened in the reverse, I still wouldn't be okay. If it was white people who were enslaved or any other group that were enslaved, it was black people in charge, right? And only a very small few group of black people had slaves, but the rest of us didn't. Like, I'm not going to sit here years later and allow the oppressed groups who were once slaves try to say it was everybody. No, I'm no, it was not everybody, and simply, and I will refuse to say that. Well, they benefited from it because what? Because they applied to program, they were able to get things from. Should Black people not have done that if it was available to them? Like, it's completely ridiculous. It's asinine to think about. It's so asinine to think about. But I think it's just a way to keep us in the past. So when it comes to history, I love history. I want all of it, the bad, the good, and the ugly. And like, no one should have to, um, what's the word? Uh, suffer the consequences of the sins of their father. No one. Um, and for some reason, you just have people here who used to think that, but they don't think that anymore. Big addiction to guilt. Yes.
He's like, oh, if I can do it,
Well,
and
he
it's
can
like,
do it. He's in good shape.
well, yeah, I see good shape. I like to see
He can
him
do the
it.
Hegseth.
Yeah,
You see him doing
no,
the pull-ups?
you know what Don Lemon brought up was a good point. He's never been in military contact.
I don't believe you.
He's never been in a military situation at all, like as far as leadership.
Hegseth?
Yeah, Hegseth has never had an active military positioning. He doesn't like know how to go fight combat at war. I don't think that he actually has.
I don't know exactly.
He literally was a Fox News host.
No, he was in the military
He was
prior
in the
to
military.
that.
Okay, well, if he still
I
has the
think
same.
he was in combat. I don't know
correct
exactly.
me if I'm wrong.
No, he was in
military.
combat.
Because he was literally in the military. He was in the reserves and he got activated and went downrange. Okay, it's like, oh wow, Lindsay, shut. I'm sorry. I'm man. Lindsay, be quiet. Lindsay, be quiet.
Okay, fine. He was a combat veteran ages ago. So let's say he was, but his latest job was a Fox News host. So if he still has those same skills and then comes back to this position and he's seeing over 3.5.
Okay, guys, I'm gonna have to end this in a few, and because I gotta go to a football game tonight, where it's kids' football game tonight. But I'll be back later to talk. Well, actually, I don't know. I might have to come back tomorrow and talk after another football game in the morning.
4 million personnel and for a military and leading them this erratically, I think that that would be uncomfortable. To think that anybody who has that lack of experience or such a history of experience, but most recently you were a television host like you and I, telling people what they should do for the future of our country under an erratic leader who's telling people to punch people in Chicago. I think that's all a recipe for a disaster.
I don't want to consider domestic crime to be a war like an invading force, because I think that gives the government too much leeway to misbehave, and there's just kind of a. So yeah, I agree with parts of it. I disagree with parts of it. I'm not sure it was necessary to bring the whole military here.
I mean, you can also say the same thing with Department of Defense. Like, defense can be not just from international, but also from internal. Like, we're going to defend this city, how like they're doing now, and people can still take offense to it because they'll be like, oh, you're taking this way too out of context, the term defense, so it could go either way, Robbie.
It's $6 billion to do
Objective
that.
standards for performance is fine. We're not going to make it so you only have to do 6 push-ups if you're overweight or different or female or whatever it is. It's just whoever can pass it can be in the military. And for combat roles.
And
for
do you
non-combat
agree
roles,
that millions of dollars, I think last night it was estimated 6 million to bring the troops there to tell them cut your beards and shave your head
Yeah,
and
that's
also
not- I
fight
don't
in
have any problem
Chicago?
with that advice.
was such a waste. No, the advice plus the $6 million to do it. You couldn't.
Well, we could have done it under.
Yeah, they could have done that in Zoom. That was a ridiculous
Fine.
show.
if you think the only thing they talked about, Lindsay, was a military appearance and uniform, you're sorely mistaken.
That was a show for just
Fine.
Again,
a campaign
I would
rally.
have saved.
Again, talking about things as if she is a leader of a country, or even leader of a military branch, or even a leader amongst military personnel, acting as if she knows what goes on in these conferences. Like, lady, stop it.
I'm all about saving money, so we could have done it that way.
A new AI actress is sparking
Yeah,
outrage among.
I do agree with you on that one. Being deployed domestically is way out of line. That is true. But like I've said before, when you go and swear, you say you swore to defend America against both foreign and domestic. And if we don't know what domestic means, or have a scenario, or have a plan to how do we deal with domestic situations, because it's clearly there in our oath, then I don't know why that has even been provisioned in our oath. But I'm pretty sure that was put there for a reason, but it wasn't to be used in this manner. And then when I even think about the Civil War and shit, if you don't think that when we had a Civil War there weren't military troops like placed in cities, I don't know what to tell you. Even when there was segregation, you had to have when you had segregation and you had people finally desegregating schools. You literally had to have children escorted to school with police and National Guards. So it's like I do think there is a provision, or else I don't see why they would put that in our oath. Not to mention, we did have a war with the Brits. So, you could have people in our government literally working against the people, in charge of towns, with their own private armies. It happens. And, you have to have a way to deal with that. So I think it should be left up to the police. But if the police aren't doing their job, we could leave it up to the civilians. But sometimes though, it's just a hard. That's why I'm just glad I'm not in leadership. No reasonable justification. What when you have people in your own when you have civilians in your own country dying at the hands of other civilians in your own country dying, and your police isn't getting involved with that, what should you do? Are you advocating for more civilians to be killed? If you're going to say that, you might as well just say that, because that's the reality of the situation. There's no, and that's another thing. I'm tired of no offense against you, Canal Cobra, but I'm tired of the pussyfooting around and not just saying what you actually mean, at least logically stepping out these scenarios and seeing where the inevitable will lead. Inevitably, what you're asking for, what you're calling for, is for regular civilians to be killed by other civilians. If the police will not get involved, and you do not want them, at least the National Guard, getting involved. If you were to I agree with you with active duty that they probably shouldn't be involved, but at least the National Guard. And the only reason why I say that, even though they have the same training as we do with basic training and stuff, but because they are National Guard and it's for within the U.S., how they operate is within the U.S., I think they have a different protocol. So with how to handle civilians in the American interior. So, with that being said, I will not advocate for active duty military personnel. I think they're too, um, I think they would be too gung ho. But as far as National Guard or National Guard, because they're for each state. I think that would be a more reasonable way to try to deal with this, because I think with the National Guard, I think even with the National Guard, they work with the governor, they work with the mayor, they sometimes in cahoots to work with local law enforcement. That right there would be a more um, suitable a solution for me. Um, but if I was in a leadership position, I would refuse to let any part of my town be succumbed to thugs who would then turn inward to their own community to kill civilians. I refuse to let that happen. So, yeah, no, military is not for everyday law enforcement. National Guard, however, would be. Um, Yeah, but but the problem is that there's no, yeah. So I would be like, unless you, like, if it's you need to distinguish which military you want to send. And it must be National Guard. It cannot be active duty. But, and if you don't, then you have to live with the consequences that, A, people in society will get killed by other people in society because the police do not want to get involved and America doesn't want to the government doesn't want to get involved. That's what you're advocating for, or you're advocating for the possibility that if the National Guard does get involved, there will be some uncertainty about what could possibly happen. But since it's at the behest of the governor, and they have to work with the governor can then go and the governor can make the rules more so that National Guard and local police can work together. I think that's a way better way to handle the situation. And if the National Guard if the governor don't want to get involved with the National Guard to help their own citizens from getting killed, I don't know if that governor should be governor any longer. They are incompetent. They are incapable of protecting citizens who pay in taxes into the system. They deserve to be protected. Um, and if the governor doesn't have balls and galls enough to direct police enforcement, well, to direct the mayor, who will then direct the police chief, who will then direct the police force to do their job, then I do think the president should be involved, and the president should then take charge of the National Guard and only send in the National Guard troop, not active duty military. So, um, that's how I see it. I just other than that, you're just it's asking to not have any help sent. You're asking for the inevitable of having people in America kill other people in America. And when that happens, we'll start to look more and more like Guadalajara, Mexico, and South America. And cities within America will become more cities will become no-go zones in law enforcement. And when you have multiple of those happening all around America, you will destabilize it. So you can either take it as you take whatever you take it as you go. But if this continues to happen, if Portland was to reproduce itself everywhere in America, what would you want to happen then? What would you want the president or your mayor or anyone to do then? Not to mention, it's some of these same individuals in our government who wants to take away our guns. So then when let's say they did take away our guns, what will happen then? What do you expect then? You're going to wish that the National Guard could come in and deal with it. So I'm like, I think a lot of these things it's just a hard talk to have to people. And, I would not want to wish martial law on any part of America, but enough is enough. And we pay into the system. It would be one thing if we didn't pay taxes. We pay into the system. And therefore, people got to do their jobs. But I'm going to go now. We're about to have a football game, and I hope we win. I'll let you know. I'll tell you guys if we do win. But I hope you guys all have a good day, and just just take what I say with a grain of salt, but also just think about it. We don't always have to agree, but that's just I'm just laying out my opinion as logically as I can. Um, and I think that's probably what we're missing these days. I think if people did this a lot more, then I think it'll start creating more conversations on how to deal with scenarios like this so that we never see it again, especially if we want to do it in a more humane way. But sometimes there may not be a humane way. And the only way that things can get fixed is if we start a war, and we don't want to start a war, because then we don't know who will be the winners at the end. So unless you want that to happen, then I think we need to start having more conversation and more nuanced conversations to deal with this. But anyway.